It's hard to review this film without contextualizing it. In 2003, a young actor and his best friend of the same age decide to make a movie together. Without any experience making films or much experience acting in them, they set out to make a movie together, casting themselves as the lead. The film was shot almost entirely on a set and had an unknown budget, but it was estimated to cost over $6 million to produce, and nobody except the director knew where the money was coming from. Shockingly, The Room bombed at the box office, and despite the badly received and forgotten film, Tommy Wiseau used his own money and kept the film in theaters for months after. Eventually, college students discovered it and deemed it the worst film ever, causing it to become a cult classic over time. Tommy remarketed the film as a dark comedy, but he wasn't fooling anyone. More than a decade after its initial release, The Disaster Artist, a film based on the non-fiction novel of the same name. The book follows Greg Sestero and his experience being a major part of the film audiences consider the Citizen Kane of bad films. If you've watched The Room, this film is an easy sell. This review won't change that. And if you haven't, there's so much more to say.
You can guess a landing spot on the dark side of the moon. I suppose you could guess a cave.
The Disaster Artist is an in-depth look behind the making of the cult classic, The Room. Directed by, produced by, and starring Tommy Wiseau. The Disaster Artist story follows Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero as they endeavor to make a film despite their growing resentment towards each other and their lack of experience. The story, being comedic for a major part, lends itself to traditional jokes and ideas, which the Disaster Artist ignores and allows the characters and pacing of the story to be a comedic device. Along with great writing and perfect casting, this film is far and away the funniest movie I've watched this year. With the comedy comes very deep and sombering drama, mainly between Greg and Tommy. Knowing the history that surrounds this film, it never feels like a mockery. The film tells this story and celebrates the highs and the lows, so what we're left with is a joyful film that does so much right and very little wrong. Never a dull moment, and every scene, every beat, every nuance is infused with a deep love for the background of its origins. With a fondness for the history of The Room, the story is an incredibly satisfying perspective on the legend surrounding it. I'll be focusing mainly on Tommy and Greg for this review. Greg, played by Dave Franco, has formed this really enjoyable character whose optimism and dilemmas connect with me and probably everyone else in a deep way. Without too much being said, Greg is thrust into this scenario and his thought process is easy to understand, and he expresses that in a meaningful way that never feels over the top or cheap. Tommy Wiseau is by far the most enjoyable to watch on screen. His background is a complete mystery, in this film and in real life, and that informs so much of the drama and so much of the comedy. Tommy thankfully carries the film well, and only enriches the aura surrounding this character and the real-life Tommy Wiseau. He strikes a surreal balance of powerful, cruel, selfish, vulnerable, and oddly sympathetic all at the same time, and without question, being truthful to the eccentric character of Tommy Wiseau and giving an enthralling performance is a bloody difficult balancing act, and James does it brilliantly. The Disaster Artist sits in my mind as a comedic drama, similar to Judd Apatow films. Where most of his characters are originally written, Disaster Artist paints its story and characters from real-life events and experiences, and there's no doubt that that leaches into the energy of this film and makes the comedy that much more layered. The dramatic themes of the film come through despite all the insanity and never feel cheap or too manufactured. The mystery behind Tommy allows for moments that wouldn't be believable in any other film. In The Disaster Artist, thanks to James Franco's performance and the biographical nature of the film, the insanity is allowed to never let up and engross audiences with the carnage on screen. It's pretty freaking obvious how much I adore The Room, and I'm more biased than anything. I think I can separate myself away from my gut level reaction to say that, objectively, this film is enjoyable to watch and fucking hilarious. There was never a wasted moment to crack audiences up, and every opportunity taken to hit our hearts on a profound level. If you want to laugh and be enthralled, this film has you covered. Pay to experience The Disaster Artist.